Hey there. Welcome to a world of love, secrets, and heartbreak, told entirely through my eyes. This is a story about trust, betrayal, and the moments that make you question everything you thought you knew about the people closest to you. Throughout this series, you'll experience everything in first person, every glance, every heartbeat, every whispered secret that could change the course of a life. From forbidden attraction to hidden desires, from friends who may be more than friends to love that seems impossible, you'll see it all as I live it. Before we start, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely want to follow along on this emotional journey. And leave a comment to tell me, where are you listening from and what time is it there? I love seeing the world my stories reach. Each episode will take you deeper into the drama, one cliffhanger at a time, leaving you wondering, who can I trust? Who is really on my side? And what happens when the people you love aren't who you think they are? So dim the lights, take a deep breath, and immerse yourself in the story. Let yourself feel every secret, every longing, and every moment that changes everything. Welcome to the series, and let the story begin. The first time I felt the subtle shift, I almost dismissed it as exhaustion. Work had been brutal that week. Long hours, impossible deadlines, and the constant hum of city life pressing in through my apartment window. But this was different. It wasn't fatigue. It was the way Sophie laughed at something trivial, yet her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. And Lucas, my husband, the man I trusted completely, he was distracted, distant, scrolling on his phone, avoiding my gaze. Something had changed in the rhythm of our home, a tremor beneath the surface that I couldn't ignore. I set my bag down and tried to breathe, telling myself it was probably nothing. Maybe Sophie was just stressed, or Lucas preoccupied with work, but the pit in my stomach insisted otherwise. I walked into the living room where they were both sitting, trying to appear casual. "Hey," I said softly, forcing a smile. Sophie looked up for a fraction of a second, then back at her phone, her fingers tapping nervously. Lucas muttered a distracted "hey" without meeting my eyes. I felt a tightening in my chest. The warmth of home, the comfort I had always felt in this space, seemed to have evaporated. I perched on the edge of the sofa, watching them carefully. Something unspoken lingered, heavy and tense. Sophie's eyes darted to Lucas in a way that made my stomach churn. It wasn't a glance of friendship. It was sharper, more deliberate, charged with something I couldn't name yet. "Is everything okay?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Sophie's fingers paused mid-scroll. "Yeah, I'm fine," she said quickly, a little too quickly, glancing at Lucas. There was a flicker of something in her eyes, nervousness, guilt, fear. My heart hammered as I tried to parse it. Lucas sighed, still avoiding me. "Work was stressful," he said vaguely. The tension in his tone set off alarms in my mind. The way his shoulders tensed, the way his fingers drummed on the armrest, it was all too calculated to be casual. I wanted to believe I was imagining it. Maybe my mind was overreacting, projecting paranoia onto normal interactions. But later that night, when I went to get a glass of water, I noticed Sophie's phone left unattended on the counter. Its screen lit up with a new message. "It's all set. She doesn't know yet." I froze. My pulse spiked. Who didn't know? What was all set? And why did my best friend's phone reveal a message that instantly made my heart race with fear? My hand shook as I picked it up, but before I could read any further, the notification disappeared. Questions flooded my mind. Was it about me? Lucas? Something else entirely? I couldn't even breathe properly. Years of friendship, trust, and shared secrets felt suddenly fragile, like glass under pressure. I returned to the living room, trying to appear calm. Lucas hadn't noticed my brief distraction, but Sophie looked up, her expression carefully neutral. I forced a small smile and decided I needed answers eventually, but not yet. I had to be careful. I went to bed that night with my thoughts spinning. Every laugh, every glance, every fleeting touch between Sophie and Lucas from the past week replayed in my mind like a haunting loop. Something was wrong, something hidden, and I had the sinking feeling that my life was about to shift in ways I couldn't yet imagine. Sleep didn't come easily. My mind twisted every possibility into worst-case scenarios. Betrayal, lies, secrets. I wanted to tell myself I was overthinking, but deep down I knew better. Then my phone buzzed on the nightstand. I picked it up, expecting another work notification, another mundane message. But the words on the screen made my stomach drop. Be careful who you trust. Not everything is as it seems. The message had no sender, no number I recognized. Just that chilling warning. I sat on the edge of the bed, heart hammering, staring at the glowing screen. My life, my perfect, orderly life, was already beginning to crumble, and I didn't even know who I could trust. The morning sun cut through the blinds as I got ready, my thoughts still tangled in last night's message. I needed answers, but I also needed clarity, something I couldn't get by sitting at home, pacing and obsessing. Sophie had been distant, secretive, and now there was Mia, a mysterious presence that Sophie had introduced with barely a word. My chest tightened as I thought about the previous evening, the way Sophie's words had seemed rehearsed, her smiles calculated, and her eyes darting to Lucas in ways that were unsettling. I sent Sophie a simple text, "Coffee, we need to catch up." No emojis, no casual banter, just a direct request. Within minutes, her reply appeared, "Sure, same cafe as usual." The casual tone was familiar, but my instincts screamed that beneath it, there was tension waiting to erupt. When I arrived at the cafe, I immediately spotted her in our usual booth near the window. She was fiddling with her cup, her fingers tracing the rim absent-mindedly. Her hair fell across her face in a way that almost hid her expression. I slid into the seat opposite her, and she looked up, offering a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Hey," I said softly, trying to sound casual. "Hey." "Glad you could make it," she murmured. Her tone was polite but distant. I studied her as she stirred her latte, and I realized the cafe had become a stage for a performance I wasn't sure I could decipher. We exchanged small talk, painfully superficial conversation that failed to cover the tension lurking beneath the surface. I could feel Sophie holding something back, a wall I had never seen before. I wanted to tear it down, to know the truth of what she was hiding, but I had to be careful. "So, how's Lucas?" I asked, my voice measured, trying not to let my suspicions seep through. Sophie hesitated, stirring her latte in slow, circular motions. "He's fine," she replied, her words clipped, eyes avoiding mine. The avoidance made my stomach churn. It wasn't the Lucas I knew, or perhaps it was a Lucas I didn't know at all. I leaned forward slightly, lowering my voice. "You seem different lately. Is everything okay?" Her smile faltered, and she looked at me directly, her gaze sharp yet fragile. "Emma, some things are complicated. You wouldn't understand," she said, her words both a warning and a confession. My pulse quickened. "Try me," I whispered, leaning closer, feeling the weight of her silence pressing down on me. Before she could respond, a shadow fell across the table. I looked up, startled, and saw Mia standing there, her presence magnetic, her gaze fixed on me in a way that made my chest tighten. Sophie's body stiffened, and I immediately sensed that Mia's arrival was no coincidence. "Emma, this is Mia," Sophie said quickly, almost too quickly. "We work together." Mia's eyes lingered on me longer than necessary, a faint smile curling her lips. There was something about her, an intensity, a quiet allure that drew my attention and made my thoughts swirl in confusing directions. Sophie cleared her throat. "Anyway, as I was saying, things are complicated." The rest of our meeting passed in a blur. Sophie talked in circles, avoiding direct answers, and Mia's presence was like a silent pulse in the background, making my thoughts spin in ways I hadn't anticipated. I wanted to ask Sophie what was going on, to demand the truth, but every time I opened my mouth, the words caught in my throat. As we left the cafe, I noticed Mia lingering outside. Her eyes met mine, sharp and knowing, sending an icy shiver down my spine. That smile, subtle, enigmatic, made my stomach twist with both curiosity and unease. Sophie glanced at Mia and then back at me, and I realized with a sinking heart that this was only the beginning of a secret I wasn't ready to face. On the way home, the city's bustle felt distant, almost unreal. My mind replayed every moment from the cafe, the way Sophie avoided eye contact, the tension that hummed beneath the surface, and Mia's unnerving intensity. Questions piled up. What was Sophie hiding? Who exactly was Mia? And what did it mean that my carefully ordered life was beginning to unravel so quietly, yet so completely? By the time I walked through the door, the weight of suspicion and unease settled over me like a storm cloud. And as I glanced at Sophie's phone, left unattended on the counter, my pulse raced. I saw just enough of a new message that made my stomach drop. Meet me tonight. Don't let her know. Everything in me tightened. Sophie's secretive text, Mia's inscrutable gaze, Luca's distant behavior, it all pointed to something dangerous, something hidden. And the question that clawed at my mind, louder than anything else, was, how much of the truth could I handle? I didn't plan to show up at the old Riverside fairground that night. I didn't plan for anything that happened, honestly. My life before all this was predictable, painfully organized, shaped by lists and calendars and responsibilities that felt like obligations more than choices. But something in me, something I'd been ignoring for way too long, pulled me out of the house and into the cold air. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was longing. Maybe it was the way my phone kept lighting up with a message I couldn't bring myself to open, the one from Mara Hale. I shoved my hands deeper into my jacket pockets, walking down the gravel path lit by the warm glow of old fair lights. The place wasn't officially open, it never really was anymore. But people still came here, to meet, to hide, to remember. And tonight, apparently, I was one of them. I stood under the sagging string lights, watching dust drift through the beams like slow-moving snow. My heart thudded an uneven rhythm, each beat reminding me of everything I'd been avoiding. I told myself I came here to think, but the truth was simpler. This was the last place I had seen her before everything went wrong. Her, Mara. My best friend, my almost something, my never should have been, and also the fiancé of Daniel Rhodes. I closed my eyes, breathing in the faint smell of popcorn that always lingered in the air here, even months after the machine stopped running. The memories hit fast, her laugh echoing through the old wooden game booths, the way she touched my wrist that night as if she needed to feel my pulse to make sure I was real. I shouldn't have let anything happen. I knew better. But God, wanting her felt like trying not to breathe. A distant crunch of footsteps snapped my eyes open. "Thought I'd find you here," a voice said softly. I turned, and all the air left my lungs. Mara stood a few feet away, arms folded, dark hair pushed behind her ear the way she always did when she was nervous. She wore a long coat, the collar pulled up high as if she'd dressed in a rush. For a moment, neither of us moved. "Mara," I whispered, my throat tightening. She stepped closer, her boots cracking the gravel beneath her. "You didn't answer my message." "I needed time," I said, "to think, to breathe." She stopped directly in front of me. "And did it help?" I wanted to lie, I really did. But lying to her always felt like trying to lie to a mirror. "No," I said, "it made everything worse." Mara exhaled, a tremor in the sound. "I figured." Wind rustled through the bare tree branches, the lights above us swaying slightly. Shadow and gold danced across her face, carving her features in a way that made her look painfully beautiful. "I shouldn't have come," she murmured. "Then why did you?" She hesitated before answering, voice so quiet I almost didn't hear it. "Because staying away hurt more." My chest tightened. "Mara, he's your fiancé. You're getting married." Her eyes flickered with something, fear, longing, regret, all wrapped into one. "You think I don't know that? You think I don't feel guilty every second of every day?" I looked away, blinking hard. "Then why do this? Why come find me? Why keep?" "Because I can't lose you," she whispered fiercely. "Not again." Her words hit like a punch and a lifeline all at once. "Mara," I said, forcing steadiness I didn't feel, "you already made your choice." "No," she said immediately, stepping closer. "I made the choice that made sense. The one everyone expected, the one that looked good on paper." A shaky breath. "But you, what I feel for you isn't logical. It isn't easy, but it's real." My heart thundered. Every part of me wanted to close the space between us, but there was still the truth, heavy, cold, immovable. "You love him," I said. She swallowed. "Yes, I care about him. He's good, steady, safe." Her voice cracked. "But I don't lose sleep over him. I don't replay every conversation with him 1,000 times in my head. I don't feel like I'm going to break apart whenever he touches my hand." The words slipped out before I could stop them. "So what am I?" Her eyes glistened in the low light. "You're the thing I can't walk away from, even when I try." Silence fell between us, thick, electric. I took a step back, needing space, needing clarity, but Mara followed as if something invisible tethered her to me. "You're getting married in 8 weeks," I said, voice tight. "How do you think this ends?" "I don't know," she whispered. "I just know I can't pretend anymore." "Pretend about what?" "That I don't want you." Her voice cracked open. "That kissing you that night didn't change everything." My breath caught. "You can't say things like that," I whispered, "and still expect me to be okay." "I'm not asking you to be okay." She reached out slowly, as if afraid I might disappear. "I'm asking you not to run." Her fingers brushed mine, barely, lightly, dangerously, and it sent heat rushing through me. "Tell me to leave," Mara whispered. "Tell me that you don't feel the same. Tell me that you don't think about that night every time you close your eyes, and I swear I'll walk away." My lips parted. A lie would save us both. A lie would make everything easier. A lie would keep her life intact, but I couldn't do it. "I can't tell you that," I said. Her breath hitched. "Then don't." She stepped closer until our foreheads almost touched, her voice trembling. "Please, just don't." I didn't kiss her. She didn't kiss me either. But the space between us felt like it was burning. For a long, fragile moment, we simply stood there, suspended between right and wrong, between desire and duty, between the life she chose and the one she wanted. Finally, Mara pulled back, wiping at her eyes. "I shouldn't stay," she whispered, "but I can't end this here, not tonight." She hesitated, then pressed something into my hand, a folded note. "Read it when you're alone," she murmured. "And then, if you want to see me again, you'll know where to find me." Before I could respond, she turned and walked away, her figure fading into the shadows between the empty booths. I stood frozen, the note burning against my palm. I knew opening it would change everything, but not opening it might destroy me. The wind shifted, carrying the echo of her footsteps long after she was gone. I closed my eyes, and finally, with shaking fingers, I unfolded the note. I stood there in the dim fairground light, the folded note trembling between my fingers like a living thing. Mara's handwriting pressed through the paper, soft grooves written in the hurried, uneven style she always used when her emotions ran ahead of her logic. I should have waited to read it. Should have walked home, shut the door, made myself tea, sat somewhere calm and quiet before unfolding the truth she placed in my hands. But I've never been patient where she's concerned. And tonight, patience felt like a lie I wasn't willing to tell. So, with a breath I didn't quite manage to complete, I opened the note. There wasn't much on the page. No poetic confession, no perfectly crafted apology. Just a few lines raw, scratched quickly, written like she'd been afraid she wouldn't get the words out in time. I miss you more than I should. I think I've been pretending for years. If I choose you, will you stay? My stomach knotted. My pulse lurched. Everything inside me tilted. The last line was the one that undid me. Meet me tomorrow, same place, midnight. I gripped the paper so tightly it crinkled, the thin fibers softening from the heat of my hand. Midnight, tomorrow. She wasn't asking for friendship. She wasn't asking for closure. She was asking for something she had no right to ask, and something I had no strength to refuse. For a moment, I leaned against the old wooden booth beside me, feeling its cold edge through my jacket. The world felt too big and too small at once, like someone had pulled the sky closer just to make it harder to breathe. Mara wanted me. She'd said it, written it. But want wasn't enough, not when a wedding loomed over us like a countdown clock. 8 weeks. 8 weeks until she stood beside Daniel under white lights and hollow promises. Daniel. His name felt heavy, like a weight dropped into water. I didn't know what she really felt for him anymore, but I knew he adored her. The way he always watched her with a soft, protective gaze, the way he reached for her hand instinctively, the way he once told me, during a late-night group dinner, that she was the best thing that ever happened to him. He said it with his whole heart, and I couldn't forget that. Clutching the note, I pushed myself upright. My fingers were numb as I shoved the paper into my pocket and headed toward the path that led home. The walk was long, lined with old lampposts that flickered like they were unsure of their purpose. A lot like me, honestly. Halfway there, my phone buzzed. For a terrifying second, I thought it was Mara again. But the screen showed a different name, Daniel. My breath caught. It was a simple message. Are you free tomorrow? Need to talk. It's important. I stopped dead in the middle of the empty street, cold air burning my lungs. Why now? Why tomorrow? Why important? A deep chill worked its way down my spine. The timing was too perfect, too suspicious. Had he noticed something? Had Mara told him something? Or had he simply sensed the way she'd been drifting, the way her attention flickered toward me even when she didn't mean for it to? I typed a reply with frozen fingers. Yeah, I'm free. What's going on? No answer. Not even the small dots of someone typing. I lowered the phone slowly, my stomach twisting. I didn't like this. Not Daniel's message, not the timing. Not the way everything in my life seemed to be aligning like storm clouds gathering over the same spot. By the time I reached home, my thoughts were tangled so tightly they felt like knots I'd never be able to undo. I kicked off my shoes mechanically, walked into the small living room, and fell onto the couch. The silence wrapped around me, heavy and smothering. My eyes drifted to the note in my pocket. My fingertips tingled at the thought of touching it again. That fragile piece of paper held more danger than anything else in my life. Part of me wanted to destroy it, burn it, pretend it never existed. But the larger part, the part that always woke when she was near, held onto it like a lifeline. I unfolded it again, smoothing the creases. If I choose you, will you stay? I read the line over and over until the words lost shape. Until they became blurry black strokes on white. Until tears pooled in my eyes, not because I was heartbroken, but because I finally understood the truth I'd been running from. I'd never stopped waiting for her to ask me that question. A soft knock at the door startled me. I sat up, heart thundering. It was too late for visitors, too quiet outside for deliveries. I hesitated, then crossed the room, each step making my pulse spike. When I opened the door, cold air rushed in, and on the other side stood Leela. Her expression was anxious, eyes bright and searching. Leela had always been the one who saw through me the quickest. We'd been friends for years. She'd witnessed every twist and break in my life. And tonight she looked at me with a mix of concern and something else, something sharper. "Hey," she whispered. "I had a bad feeling." I blinked. "About what?" "You," she said simply. "I don't know, I just felt like something was wrong, so I came." My chest tightened at her honesty, her instinct. It wasn't unusual for Leela to check on me, but tonight her timing felt like fate nudging me harder than I was ready for. She stepped inside without waiting for an invitation and sat on the couch, wrapping her arms around herself. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I closed the door slowly, leaning against it. "Something happened." Her head snapped up. "With Mara." Of course she guessed. She always guessed. I didn't answer, not with words. I handed her the note. Leela read it in silence, then her jaw clenched and she looked up at me with a mixture of anger and heartbreak. "So she wants you to wreck your life for her indecision," she said quietly. "She's confused," I murmured. "No," Leela said firmly. "She knows exactly what she's doing. She just doesn't want to be the one to deal with the consequences." I opened my mouth, but nothing came out, because some part of me agreed with her. Leela stood, stepping closer until we were inches apart. "I know you love her, I know, but you deserve someone who actually chooses you." Her voice softened. "Someone who doesn't hide you in shadows." A sharp ache filled my chest. I wanted to argue, to defend Mara, but the truth was tangled and painful and sitting between my ribs like glass. Leela searched my face. "What are you going to do?" I swallowed hard. I'm meeting her tomorrow, midnight." Leela's eyes softened with worry, "Then promise me something." "What?" "Whatever you decide, you choose you, okay?" Her words hit deeper than I expected. My throat tightened. "I'll try," I whispered. She nodded, offering a small, sad smile before stepping back. I didn't know then, couldn't have known, that tomorrow night would change all three of our lives in ways none of us could undo. But standing there with Leela, the note burning in my hand, I felt the storm coming. And for the first time, I wasn't sure I'd survive it. I didn't sleep that night. I barely moved. I lay on my side, staring at the faint outline of the ceiling as dawn crept into the room like it was afraid to disturb me. The note from Mara sat on the nightstand, edges softened from how many times I had folded and unfolded it. Every hour I told myself to stop reading it, stop thinking about it, stop hoping. But hope is the cruelest addiction I've ever had, and Mara is the source I've never fully quit. By 7 in the morning, I finally dragged myself out of bed. My legs felt heavy, like my body understood the weight of everything in a way my mind refused to accept. I splashed cold water on my face, staring into the bathroom mirror. My reflection looked like a stranger who had spent the night arguing with ghosts. I had just wrapped my hair into a loose bun when a sudden knock at the front door made me jump. Not a gentle knock. A firm, deliberate one. A knock from someone who had a purpose. My stomach dropped. There was only one person I could imagine showing up this early after last night's message. Daniel. I opened the door slowly, bracing myself. And there he was, standing on my porch, eyes shadowed and tired, dressed in a wrinkled t-shirt and jeans like he hadn't bothered to sleep. His hands were shoved into his pockets, jaw tight, like he'd spent hours trying to swallow something too big to accept. "Emma," he said quietly. "Daniel," I swallowed, forcing calm. "You're early." He gave a humorless half-smile. "Yeah, I figured if I didn't come now, I'd talk myself out of it." That didn't sound good, not at all. "Do you want to come in?" I asked. He hesitated, then nodded. When he stepped inside, he looked around like he had forgotten what my place looked like. He'd been here dozens of times before. Game nights, birthdays, the occasional dinner when he and Mara wanted company. But today, he wandered with a distance in his eyes, like he wasn't sure the ground beneath him was solid anymore. "I didn't know where else to go," he murmured. "And I didn't know who else to trust." The word trust hit me like a gut punch. I motioned for him to sit on the couch. He didn't, not immediately. Instead, he paced the room, rubbing his temples, breathing hard like he was fighting an invisible tidal wave. "Daniel," I whispered. "What's going on?" He stopped pacing and looked at me, truly looked. There was fear in his eyes, but also something like resignation or maybe realization. "I don't think she wants to marry me," he said. My breath caught. Even if I'd expected it, even if some part of me always knew this moment would come, it still sliced through me. "What makes you think that?" I asked carefully. He let out a broken laugh, dragging a hand through his hair. "Emma, please, don't pretend you don't see it." I froze. "See what?" He stared at me for a long, heavy moment. "The way she looks at you." My heart stopped. He wasn't angry, he wasn't accusing, he was hurting, and that made everything worse. I forced my breath to stay steady. "Daniel." "Mara and I were just friends," he cut in softly. "Is that what you're going to say?" I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. The silence between us grew thick, buzzing with all the truths we'd each been trying to bury. Daniel sat down finally, dropping onto the couch like his legs couldn't hold him anymore. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. "She's distant," he whispered. "She leaves early, comes home late, hides her phone, won't look me in the eye if I ask where she's been. And last night," he paused, swallowing hard. "Last night she came home different, like she'd made a decision, like she'd said goodbye to something or someone." Every word stabbed deeper. I sat beside him slowly. "Daniel, Mara loves you." He turned toward me, eyes glassy but sharp. "Does she love you more?" My breath stilled completely. He stared at me, waiting, desperate for a denial, for a lie, for anything that could calm the storm inside him. But I couldn't lie. Not about this, not anymore. I looked away. That was answer enough. Daniel inhaled sharply, shoulders slumping. "I knew it," he whispered. His voice wasn't bitter, it wasn't angry, it was simply broken. And somehow that hurt more than if he had screamed at me. "I always wondered," he murmured, eyes drifting to the window. "Why you two were so close, why she lit up when you walked into a room, why she looked at me, but never the same way she looked at you." My pulse hammered in my throat. "Daniel, nothing happened, I swear." He nodded slowly. "Maybe not, but something existed, something real." I blinked back, the ache stinging my chest. He leaned back, exhaling shakily. "Do you love her?" My heart clenched so hard I felt the pain in my fingertips. Yes," I whispered. The word was small, but it filled the entire room. Daniel closed his eyes, his breath leaving him in a long, trembling sigh. For a moment, neither of us moved. The world felt suspended, the air thick enough to drown in. When he opened his eyes again, he looked strangely calm. "Thank you for telling me," he said quietly. I stared at him, baffled. "You're not angry?" "Oh, I'm angry," he said with a hollow laugh. "Just not at you." He stood, shoulders heavy but posture straighter than before. "I'm angry that she let this go on. I'm angry she kept us both in the dark. I'm angry she didn't have the courage to choose." He paused at the door. "But most of all," he whispered, "I'm angry at myself for not noticing sooner." Tears stung my eyes. "Daniel," he shook his head. "I'm not here to blame you, Emma. I came because I needed the truth, and now that I have it," he swallowed hard, "I need to decide what to do." He opened the door halfway, then hesitated. There was fear in his eyes now. The honest human kind, the kind someone has when they're about to lose the person they love. "If she picks you," he whispered, "please don't let her destroy you the way she destroyed me." Before I could speak, he stepped outside and closed the door behind him. I stood frozen, unable to breathe. What had I done? What had we done? What was going to happen now? My pulse pounded in my ears. Because tonight at midnight, Mara wanted an answer. And now Daniel needed one too. And somehow, impossibly, I stood in the middle of their breaking world. And the worst part, I didn't know how to save myself from it. After Daniel left, the silence in my house felt alive, breathing, pulsing, whispering things I wasn't ready to hear. I stood by the door long after it closed, unsure what to do with my hands, my thoughts, or the ache swelling inside my chest. He knew. He finally knew. And somehow that felt like a dam breaking, one I'd been reinforcing for years. I drifted into the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water I never drank, then set it down untouched. The clock ticked too loudly on the wall, every second a reminder of how little time remained. Midnight. She wanted an answer at midnight. But how do you give an answer when your entire world tilts in 11 different directions? I ran my fingers through my hair, pacing. Part of me wanted to call her, to tell her about Daniel showing up, about the pain etched into his voice, about the way he stood in my doorway looking like a man watching his future walk away. But another voice whispered she already knows how this will end, and that terrified me more than anything. Around noon, my phone buzzed. I jumped so hard I nearly dropped it. "Mara, are you home? I need to see you." My heart skidded. I typed a reply, then erased it, typed again. Erased again. Finally, now isn't a good time. The 3 dots appeared almost instantly. Disappeared. Reappeared. "Mara, please, I'm close." 5 minutes. 5 minutes. My body moved before my mind could stop it. I checked the mirror, smoothed my hair, wiped away the faint traces of stress beneath my eyes. It was pathetic, almost humiliating, caring how I looked for a woman who could ruin me with a single choice. But I couldn't help it. When Mara knocked, I opened the door, breath caught in my throat. She looked destroyed. Not physically, she was still beautiful in that infuriating, magnetic way. But her eyes were red, her expression torn, her serenity cracked like a mirror hit by a stone. She stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. The moment the door shut behind us, the room thickened with the things we weren't saying. "You saw Daniel," she whispered. It wasn't a question. "Yes," I said. Mara shut her eyes for a moment, bracing herself. "He wasn't supposed to go to you." I crossed my arms instinctively. "And why not? Because he might actually find out the truth." Her eyes snapped open, sharp with pain. "Emma, don't do that." "Do what?" I stepped closer. "Speak plainly." "Tell the truth. Something neither of us has done in years." She winced like I'd slapped her. "I'm trying. God, I'm trying." Her voice cracked. For a moment, she looked like the girl I met 8 years ago, the one who laughed too loudly, who ate birthday cake at midnight, who held my hand during thunderstorms without even noticing. I softened just a little. "Mara, he's hurting." "I know," she said, voice trembling, "and it's my fault." Her hands shook. She clasped them together like she needed to physically hold herself together. "I never meant to hurt anyone," she whispered. "Least of all you." The words hit me in the center of my chest. "You didn't just hurt me," I said quietly. "You confused me. You pulled me in, then pushed me away. You made me feel like I was imagining everything." Her lips parted, breath shuddering. "I pushed you away because I loved you too much." Time froze. The air in the room vanished. My lungs forgot how to function. "Mara," I whispered. She took a shaky breath. "I wasn't supposed to fall for you, Emma. I fought it for years. I told myself it was just friendship. I told myself it would fade, but it didn't. It grew until it scared me." She stepped toward me, inch by inch, like gravity was pulling her forward. "And then I met Daniel," she said, voice barely audible. "And he felt safe. He felt normal. And for a while, I thought maybe I could choose the life that made sense." Her eyes glistened. "But every time I thought I had moved on. You'd smile at me or call me or touch my arm or laugh at one of my stupid jokes and she broke, just broke. "I realized I could love him," she whispered, "but I was never in love with him." My heart pounded so loudly I thought she could hear it. "And you?" I asked softly. "Are you in love with me?" Her breath caught. She nodded. A small, fragile nod, but enough to shake the foundation beneath us. I stepped back, needing space, needing air, needing anything that wasn't the feeling of my world shifting beneath my feet. Mara, you can't just walk in here and say that. Not when you're engaged, not when Daniel has no stability left, not when— Please don't say no, she whispered, stepping forward again. Not yet, not until midnight. Let me explain everything before you decide. My pulse raced. Daniel deserves better, and you know it, she swallowed. He deserves the truth. And I'm going to give it to him, but you deserve the truth too, my eyes stung. And what truth is that? That I want you, she whispered. Not the idea of you, not the past version of you, you now, here. I looked away, heart aching, body trembling. Emma, she said, voice shaking. If you tell me tonight that you want me to, I'll end the engagement. I'll leave. I'll choose you. The world stopped spinning. I forced myself to meet her eyes. And if I say no, she exhaled shakily, then I'll marry him, I'll bury this, I'll pretend none of this ever happened. And will you be happy? I asked. Her silence was the answer. Tears slipped down her cheeks, quiet, unrestrained. I'm not asking for forever, she whispered. I'm asking for tonight, just tonight. Hear me out. Let me explain everything. Then she stepped closer, so close I could feel her breath on my skin. Emma. Do you think there's a universe where I'm not in love with you? My breath wavered. Mara, she leaned in, but I turned my head away. Her breath hitched, but she didn't try again. She stepped back slowly, eyes shattered. I'll see you at midnight, she whispered. Then she left. The door clicked shut. And I collapsed into the nearest chair, trembling violently, because the truth was worse than everything she confessed. I didn't know whether I wanted her to choose me, and I didn't know what answer I'd give her when the clock struck 12. I don't know if it was the wine, the quiet, or the fact that my heart had been aching for hours, but the moment Eva stepped into my apartment, something in me shifted. It wasn't dramatic. No thunder, no sudden music, but it was real, so real my hands trembled as I locked the door behind her. She didn't even pretend she came for anything else. No small talk, no fake excuses. She just looked at me with that soft, unreadable expression and said, I didn't want you to be alone tonight. I swallowed. I would have been fine. Her eyebrows lifted slightly. I know, but fine doesn't mean you should be alone. I didn't have an answer to that. Not one that wouldn't expose how desperately I wanted someone, her, to see me. And she always saw me, even when I tried to hide. The silence stretched between us, comfortable, then charged. Then something more. Eva walked past me into the living room, her fingers grazing my arm as she moved. For a second, I stopped breathing. It was barely a touch, like the ghost of a promise, but it felt like electricity ran straight through me. She noticed. Of course she noticed. She always noticed everything. I followed her reluctantly, my pulse a mess beneath my skin. She sat on the edge of my couch, her dark hair falling over one shoulder, her gaze tracing the room, not judging, just searching. Like she was looking for evidence of my emotional state. I wrapped my arms around myself. It's been a long day. Her eyes returned to me instantly. Then talk to me. I shook my head. Talking won't fix anything. No, she agreed softly, but talking might help you breathe again. That was the thing about Eva. She never pushed. She never demanded. She simply offered herself gently and completely, and for someone like me, who had spent most of her life proving she could survive alone, that offer felt terrifyingly intimate. But I sat beside her anyway, not close enough to touch. Close enough to feel the heat of her body radiating against mine. I didn't know where to start. Everything had collapsed so quickly, my relationship, my sense of certainty, the illusion that I was finally building something stable. And yet none of those pieces hurt as much as the fear that I was losing myself again, falling back into patterns I thought I'd outgrown. Eva didn't rush me. She just waited. Eventually, I whispered, "She never loved me the way I needed." Eva inhaled sharply. "I'm sorry." "Maybe it's my fault," I continued. "Maybe I expect too much. Maybe—" "Don't," she cut in gently. "Don't make excuses for someone who didn't show up for you." My throat tightened. "I thought she would choose me." Eva's jaw clenched. "And she didn't. That says nothing about you and everything about her." The words were firm but warm. Protective, grounding, I closed my eyes. For the first time all day, I felt the pressure in my chest loosen just enough to take a full breath. "Can I be honest?" Eva asked. I nodded, though part of me wasn't ready for whatever came next. "I hated seeing you with her," she said. My eyes shot open. "What?" Eva didn't look away. She didn't blush or hesitate. She simply held my stare with quiet honesty. "She wasn't good for you," she continued. "Not because she didn't love you in her way, but because you dimmed every time she walked into a room." I flinched. "That's not—" "It is," Eva said softly. "You're brighter than you know, and she never saw it. Not really." Something in my chest cracked open. I whispered, "Why are you saying this now?" Her voice lowered, almost a confession. "Because tonight, watching you break on that staircase, I realized I didn't want to pretend anymore." The air evaporated between us. My pulse roared in my ears. "Pretend what?" I breathed. She looked at my lips, then away, like the admission was too vulnerable to sit inside. "That I don't care more than I should." I froze. There it was, the truth I had been dancing around for months. The truth she had been holding behind her eyes for even longer. It didn't feel like a sudden revelation. It felt like the last veil being pulled off something we both already knew. "Eva," I whispered, because her name was the only thing holding my emotions together. "I'm not asking for anything," she said quickly. "I know you're hurting. I know this isn't the moment. I just need you to know I'm here, not because you're broken, not because I want to fix you, but because you matter to me." Something hot stung my eyes. I wiped at a tear before it fell, embarrassed by its fragility. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that." "You don't have to do anything." She leaned back slightly. "Just let me care about you." No one said things like that to me, not without wanting something in return, not without turning the vulnerability into a weapon later, but Eva wasn't like that. She never had been. My hands trembled again, and she reached out slowly, so slowly I could have pulled away at any moment. I didn't. Her fingers brushed mine. It was the smallest touch, but it felt like a decision. I inhaled sharply, and she paused as if giving me one last chance to retreat. When I didn't, her hand fully slipped into mine. Warm, steady, safe. "I'm right here," she whispered. "You don't have to face any of this alone." My head lowered unconsciously until my forehead rested against her shoulder. The moment our skin touched, a soft breath escaped her lips, not desire, not surprise, but something achingly gentle. Acceptance. Relief. I stayed there, letting the world finally quiet, letting myself lean on someone I had spent so long pretending not to need. She held my hand the entire time. I don't know how long we sat like that, minutes, maybe hours. Eventually, she shifted, not away but closer, her cheek resting lightly on my hair. And then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said my name. Not like a friend, not like someone afraid to cross a line, but like it was a secret she had been carrying for far too long. It was the way she said it, the softness, the longing, that made my heartbeat stutter. "Eva," I whispered, lifting my head just enough to see her eyes. The air between us tightened again, unbearably fragile. She didn't kiss me. She didn't pull me into her arms. She just looked at me like she was finally allowing herself to feel everything she'd been hiding. "Whatever happens next," she whispered, "you're not going to break alone." My breath trembled out of me, and for the first time since everything imploded, I believed her. I really believed her. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was replaying my breakup, or because my heart still felt bruised from the argument that ended everything earlier. I didn't sleep because Eva stayed. Not physically. She left around midnight with a soft squeeze of my hand and a promise to check on me in the morning, but her presence lingered like warmth trapped under my skin. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the look she gave me right before she said my name, the one filled with something I wasn't ready to name out loud, yet I felt it, everywhere. By dawn, my mind felt heavy, but my body buzzed with a strange mix of adrenaline and tenderness. And guilt. Yes, that too. Because I shouldn't have leaned into her. Shouldn't have let my guard fall in the very moment my heart was at its most vulnerable. Shouldn't have found comfort in her arms when my relationship had just fallen apart hours earlier. But the truth was ugly and simple. I hadn't felt that safe in months. At 9:14 a.m., my phone buzzed. "Eva, I'm grabbing coffee. Want a latte? Or tea? Or something stronger? I won't judge." I stared at the message for a full minute, wondering if last night had cracked something open between us that couldn't be closed again. Then I typed me latte, and something stronger in case I regret today. She replied instantly. "Eva, I'll bring both." My stomach flipped. I wasn't prepared for her to show up again so soon. I wasn't prepared for the softness she carried into my apartment like it belonged there. I wasn't prepared for the way my pulse reacted when I heard her footsteps outside my door. When I opened it, she was there, sunlight behind her, hair pulled into a low, messy bun, 2 drinks in her hands, and a look that made heat bloom in my chest. Not romantic, not yet, but deeply, undeniably intimate. "I brought courage in a cup," she said, lifting the extra drink. I stepped aside. God knows I need it. She walked in without hesitation, without the awkwardness I would have expected after last night's emotional collapse. If anything, she felt even more present, more grounded. Like she'd made a decision I hadn't fully caught up to yet. She handed me the latte, then the something stronger, a chai latte with an extra shot of espresso. I raised an eyebrow. This might actually kill me. "It won't," she said gently, "but it'll keep your heart busy while your mind catches up." I blinked. "What does that even mean?" Her eyes flicked to mine. "It means you think too much when you're hurting." I sat on the couch, pulling my legs under me. "And what? You don't?" "Of course I do," she said, sitting beside me but not too close. "But I don't lie to myself about what I feel." A quiet tension slid between us. There it was again, the thing she wasn't saying, the thing I wasn't ready to hear. I tried to deflect. "So you're saying I'm a liar?" She smiled softly. "You're saying it, not me." God, why did she have to be like this? So calm and careful and devastatingly sincere. Most people blurted feelings like a confession. Eva offered them like truths she had already accepted. I exhaled. "Everything feels so messy." "That's because it is messy," she said. "But mess doesn't mean wrong." My throat tightened. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do with last night." Her posture shifted, not pulling away but bracing. "What do you think you should do?" "I think I should apologize." Her eyes dimmed, but she didn't look away. "For what?" "For leaning on you, for giving you the wrong idea, for whatever happened." Silence, heavy and sharp. Then she said, very softly, "You didn't give me the wrong idea." My breath hitched. "Eva," she held up a hand, not to silence me, but to steady herself. "Let me be clear. I'm not asking you for anything. I'm not trying to rush you or confuse you, but don't pretend what happened between us was something it wasn't." I looked down at my hands, guilty heat spreading across my cheeks. "I'm scared." Her voice softened. "Of me?" "No," I whispered. "Of myself." She nodded once, absorbing that like she absorbed everything. Then we go slow. What does slow mean? I asked, her lips curved, not into a smile, but something warmer. It means you're allowed to feel what you feel without forcing it into a category. I stared at her. And what about what you feel? Eva hesitated just for a second before answering. I feel what I feel, she said simply. I'm not hiding it anymore, but it doesn't have to overwhelm you. Something in me melted. It wasn't a confession, it wasn't pressure, it was permission, and I didn't know how to hold that. I sank deeper into the couch, overwhelmed. Eva, I don't trust myself right now. I don't even trust what's real. She slid a little closer. Not enough to touch, just enough that our knees were almost brushing. Then she said something so gentle it broke something inside me. You don't need to choose anything today. I swallowed. Then what do I do? You heal, she said. You breathe. You let yourself exist without demanding answers. And then, carefully, she added, and if it's okay with you, I stay. The air felt thick. You want to stay, I whispered. Her eyes softened. I want to support you, if that means sitting here doing nothing. Yes. And if it means something else? I asked before I could stop myself. Eva froze, not with fear, but with the caution of someone who didn't want to break what wasn't hers. Then you tell me what that something else is, she said, and I'll follow your lead. My heart wasn't ready for that kind of tenderness. I looked away, eyes burning. Why are you being so gentle with me? She hesitated, then whispered, because you deserve gentle. The words hit me like a physical ache. No one had ever said that to me, ever. In the long stretch of silence afterward, she didn't move, didn't pressure, didn't expect. She just waited, patient and steady and heartbreakingly present. And somewhere between one breath and the next, I realized something terrifying. I didn't want her to leave. Not today, not now, not after last night. Eva, I said quietly. Yeah, you can stay for a while. Her smile wasn't big or triumphant. It was soft, grateful, almost relieved. Okay, she whispered. As long as you want. And for the first time since everything shattered, I didn't feel broken. I felt held without being touched, seen without having to explain, wanted without being claimed, and that somehow scared me more than anything. I didn't cry again that night, not because I was suddenly stronger, but because I felt completely hollow, like someone had reached inside my chest and scraped everything out. The apartment felt too quiet, too still. Every tick of the clock pressed against my nerves like a needle. I kept replaying the breakup, the words I never thought I'd hear, the numbness in my own voice when I said, I understand, even though I didn't understand anything. I should have tried to sleep. Instead, I drifted around my bedroom like a ghost, touching the corners of furniture, tracing the outline of the window frame, pretending each small movement meant I still had control over something. But control was the one thing I had lost, and no amount of phone checking or overthinking could bring it back. When my phone buzzed at 12:47 a.m., I jumped. My heart hammered. A part of me hoped it was him, some desperate, too-late apology, a message saying he regretted everything. I hated myself for wanting it, for craving closure from the person who'd just broken me. The notification preview froze me. It wasn't him. It was Eva. Are you awake? I stared at the message, not moving. Why was she texting me at nearly 1 a.m.? And why did I feel that strange, warm pull in my chest again, like her words reached me in the place that was still hurting? I typed back without thinking. Yes. Her reply came instantly. I'm outside. My breath caught. Outside. Here, at this hour. I rushed to the window and pulled the curtains aside just enough to peek through. And there she was, sitting in her car across the street, illuminated by the soft glow of the street lamp. Alone. Still. Almost fragile in a way I'd never seen before. I didn't know what compelled me, loneliness, shock, desperation, or the irresistible gravity she seemed to carry, but I slipped on a hoodie, grabbed my keys, and walked out the door. The cold air hit my lungs sharply as I crossed the street. She stepped out of the car the moment she saw me. Her expression wasn't her usual smirk or teasing confidence. Tonight she looked scared, as if she had been wrestling with whether to come here at all. "Eva, what's going on?" I whispered. She swallowed, her breath making small clouds in the cold night. "I didn't want you to be alone tonight," she said quietly. My throat tightened. No one had ever said something like that to me before, not with that kind of sincerity, not like it wasn't an obligation but a choice. Before I could respond, she took a small step closer, not touching me, just close enough that I felt the heat of her presence. "You didn't answer my earlier message," she continued. "And I don't know, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about you and everything you're going through." Her voice trembled at the end, and something inside me cracked open. "I didn't think anyone cared," I admitted, my voice barely more than a breath. "I mean, everyone knows already. It's humiliating." Eva's eyes softened. "It's not humiliating. You were honest. He wasn't." I looked down, my throat burning. The honesty of her words was like a knife and a bomb at the same time. She touched my arm, just a light, careful brush of her fingers, but it felt like the most grounding touch I'd had in days. "I'm here because I want to be," she said. "Not because I feel sorry for you." Our breath mingled in the cold air as I lifted my eyes to hers. Something passed between us, something unspoken, something dangerous, something I wasn't ready to name. "Do you want to talk?" she asked. I nodded. We sat in her car, the heater humming softly. The world outside blurred into a quiet, night-soaked backdrop. Inside, everything felt strangely intimate, as if we were sealed into a tiny universe where it was just the two of us, breathing the same warm air. Eva rested her hands on the steering wheel for a moment, collecting her thoughts. "I know I don't have the right to show up like this," she began. "But something about tonight, it didn't feel right, not letting you go through it alone." I stared at her profile, the curve of her jaw, the faint shadows under her eyes, the softness of her mouth. It felt wrong to notice these things now. Wrong, and yet I couldn't stop. "You always know what to say," I whispered. She gave a soft, almost sad laugh. "I don't, I just feel things deeply, maybe too deeply." Her voice dipped, as if revealing a truth she rarely shared. I turned toward her fully. "Eva, why are you really here?" She hesitated only a moment, but that moment was enough to charge the air between us. "Because," she said quietly, "I care about you more than I should." My breath caught. She didn't look at me after saying it. Her gaze stayed ahead, fixed on the windshield, like the admission itself had cost her something she wasn't ready to examine. "Eva." "It's okay," she cut in softly. "You don't have to say anything. You're hurting, you're confused, I'm not asking for anything." Her hand brushed mine, just the back of her fingers grazing my skin. But that single touch felt like a spark that shot through my entire body. I didn't pull away. She drew in a breath, her voice strained. "I shouldn't have said that." But the truth was, I didn't want her to take it back. "Eva." I whispered again, unable to silence the tremor in my voice. She finally turned toward me, her eyes glistening slightly. And for the first time since I'd met her, I saw just how vulnerable she could be. Neither of us moved. Neither of us spoke. The silence between us became its own language, one filled with confusion, longing, fear, and something dangerously close to hope. Then my phone buzzed. We both flinched. I looked down at the screen. The message preview made my heart stop cold. A text from an unknown number. "You're making a mistake. Eva isn't who she says she is." I felt the blood drain from my face. Eva saw my reaction instantly. "What's wrong?" I couldn't speak. My fingers were trembling as I turned the phone so she could see the message. Her face went pale. "Emma," she whispered, her voice fragile. "I can explain." My pulse pounded in my ears. Explain what? Explain why someone was warning me. Explain what she hadn't told me. Explain the things she'd been hiding since the moment we met. The night around us suddenly felt sharp-edged, dangerous, And that's when I realized this wasn't just heartbreak anymore. Something bigger was happening, something I wasn't prepared for, and Eva was at the center of it. And that's it for today's episode, but the story is far from over. Every secret revealed, every glance shared, and every choice made brings us closer to truths that could change everything. If you want to follow what happens next, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next episode. Your support keeps this story alive, and I promise the next part will be even more intense, emotional, and full of suspense. Tell me in the comments, what would you do if someone you trusted completely wasn't who they seemed? I read every comment, and I love seeing how you feel about the choices I'm forced to make in this story. Get ready, because in the next episode, the secrets deepen, hearts are tested, and nothing will ever feel the same again. Until then, breathe, reflect, and keep your heart open, because you never know which secret will hit you hardest next.